Imagine this for a moment. It is midnight. The fire in your home is dying. The shadows on the walls begin to stretch and move as the flames shrink lower. Outside, something is walking slowly through the darkness. You hear heavy breathing, not rushed, not frantic, but controlled. Footsteps crunch against dirt and stone. Then claws scrape briefly against wood. Not an animal, not fully human. And the most terrifying thought of all settles into your mind like ice. It might be someone you know, a neighbor, a friend, a man who spoke to you earlier that day. Human by daylight, something else by night. For over 5,000 years, humanity has lived with this fear. Not as fiction, not as entertainment, but as a belief so powerful it shaped laws, religion, medicine, and justice itself. The werewolf curse is one of the oldest fears ever recorded in human history, and despite centuries of progress, it never truly died. Long before medieval villages, before castles, before the word werewolf was ever spoken, ancient humans already believed that a person could cross the boundary between man and beast. The earliest trace of this belief does not come from folklore passed around campfires. It comes from written history, etched into clay tablets in ancient Mesopotamia around 3000 BCE, when civilization itself was just being born. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known stories ever written, a woman angers the gods and is punished by being transformed into a wolf. The story does not explain the transformation in detail. It doesn't need to. The audience already understood what it meant. Becoming a wolf was not symbolic. It was a curse, a fate worse than death. To ancient people, wolves were not romantic creatures. They were living threats. Wolves hunted in packs. They watched from the edges of villages. They killed livestock, and sometimes they killed people. To imagine a human becoming a wolf was to imagine intelligence fused with predatory instinct. A creature that could plan, remember, and hate, but kill with teeth and claws. As human societies grew, this fear grew with them. In ancient Greece, the idea of transformation became more detailed, more physical, and more terrifying. The story of King Lycaon of Arcadia tells of a ruler whose crimes were so vile that Zeus punished him by stripping away his humanity. Ancient descriptions emphasize that Lycaon did not simply turn into a wolf. His body twisted. His posture collapsed forward. His hands became paws. His face stretched into a muzzle. His voice broke into a growl. And yet, even as a beast, his eyes still carried human awareness. This detail mattered deeply. The werewolf was not an animal pretending to be human. It was a human trapped inside an animal body. Conscious, aware, ashamed, hungry. The Greeks believed that extreme moral corruption could rot the soul and eventually reshape the body itself. Violence, cannibalism, and cruelty were thought to awaken something animal within a person. The wolf became the ultimate symbol of this transformation because it represented hunger without mercy. The Romans inherited these beliefs and treated them with disturbing seriousness. Writers like Pliny the Elder documented accounts of men who were said to transform into wolves at night and roam forests and mountains. According to Roman descriptions, these transformations were physical and unmistakable. Clothing was shed or left behind. Bodies became covered in coarse hair. Teeth lengthened. Jaws widened. Muscles thickened and hardened. The human spine bent forward, forcing the creature onto all fours. Romans debated whether these transformations were curses, illnesses, or punishment from the gods. Some believed rituals could trigger the change. Others believed it happened under certain lunar conditions, when something ancient in the blood was awakened. Soldiers returning from distant lands told stories of encountering wolf-like figures on the edges of camps and battlefields, creatures that stood upright for a moment before dropping to all fours and disappearing into the dark. As the Roman world collapsed and Europe entered the Dark Ages, the fear did not fade. It intensified. Christianity reframed the werewolf as evidence of evil. Transformation was no longer just a curse or moral consequence. It became proof of demonic influence. By the Middle Ages, The werewolf was believed to be a human who had made a pact with dark forces, surrendering their soul in exchange for power. Descriptions of the transformation grew more graphic. People believed bones cracked and shifted during the change. Skin stretched painfully as hair burst through flesh. Fingers fused into claws. The jaw elongated as teeth pushed outward. Witnesses claimed the process was agonizing, but that the pain was followed by an overwhelming hunger that drowned out all reason. Villagers believed werewolves could not fully hide their nature. Even in human form, they were said to show signs. Excessive body hair, long, sharp nails, an unnatural appetite, restlessness at night, eyes that seemed too intense, too alert, too aware. Some believed that cutting a suspected werewolf would reveal fur beneath the skin. Others claimed that wounds inflicted in wolf form would appear on a human body the next day. Between the 15th and 17th centuries, this fear reached its deadliest peak. Europe was consumed by panic. Werewolf trials spread across France, Germany, Switzerland, and Scandinavia. Men were arrested, interrogated, tortured, and executed for the crime of becoming wolves. Entire communities lived in fear, barricading their homes at night, not just against animals, but against their neighbors. Court records describe accused men confessing to running on all fours through forests. Their senses sharpened, their strength multiplied. They spoke of tearing animals apart with their teeth, of tasting blood, of losing control to a hunger that felt ancient and unstoppable. Some claimed they hunted children. Others claimed they could not remember what they did once the transformation began. One of the most infamous cases was Peter Stump of Germany. He was accused of using a cursed belt given to him by the devil to transform into a wolf. Witnesses claimed to have seen a massive wolf attacking livestock, only for it to vanish and for Stump to be found nearby, wounded in the same places. Under torture, he confessed to decades of murder and cannibalism. His execution was brutal and public, designed to terrify anyone who might harbor similar thoughts. In France, Gilles Garnier was accused of luring children into the woods and killing them in wolf form. He confessed under interrogation and was burned alive. Whether these men were serial killers, mentally ill, or victims of mass hysteria remains debated. What is undeniable is that society truly believed they were werewolves. What makes this history so disturbing is that belief alone was enough to kill. As centuries passed and science began to replace superstition, the werewolf did not disappear. It changed form. Doctors began documenting cases of people who genuinely believed they were transforming into animals. They reported sensations of hair growing, bones shifting, jaws changing shape, and an overwhelming urge to hunt. This condition became known as clinical lycanthropy. Modern medicine explains these experiences through psychology and neurology. Ancient people explained them through curses and demons. But the experience itself, the terror of losing control, of becoming something else, remains hauntingly similar. Across cultures, the same fear appears again and again. Norse berserkers wore wolf skins and entered battle in a frenzy, believing they had taken on the spirit of the animal. African folklore spoke of men who became predators by night. Native American legends warned of skinwalkers, humans who abandoned their humanity for power. Different cultures, different names, the same nightmare. The werewolf endures because it is not just a monster. It is a reflection of humanity's oldest fear, the fear that civilization is fragile, that morality is learned, not guaranteed, that beneath laws, religion, and order, something wild still lives inside us. For 5,000 years, humans have told this story because they were afraid of themselves, afraid that under the right conditions, hunger, rage, isolation, any man could become a beast. And perhaps the most unsettling truth of all is this: the werewolf never needed to exist to be real. The fear alone shaped history, destroyed lives, and still lingers in the human mind. That is why the werewolf curse never died. It evolved, it adapted, and it still waits at the edge of the firelight, watching for the moment when the man becomes the monster. For 5,000 years, the werewolf has haunted humanity not because it lived in the forests, but because it lived in us. It survived the rise of civilization, the fall of empires, the terror of medieval trials, and the cold logic of modern science. Not as a creature of fur and fangs, but as a fear buried deep in the human mind. The fear that when rules collapse, when hunger speaks louder than reason, when darkness lasts too long, the man does not disappear, he transforms. The werewolf curse was never just about becoming a beast. It was about losing control, losing restraint, losing humanity. And that is why this fear never died. Because even today, we still whisper the same question our ancestors once asked in the dark. What happens when the beast inside us wakes up? If stories like this stir something deep inside you, if you're drawn to the real horrors hidden in history, then this is where you belong. Subscribe to Dew of Dread, where ancient fears, forbidden truths, and historical nightmares are brought back to life. Leave a comment and tell us, do you think the werewolf was ever real, or was the real monster always human? Until next time, keep your fire burning and beware what waits beyond the light.